With more than half the human race living in cities, they're getting clogged up. And a lot of that space is taken up by cars and SUVs. Now, we've covered all sorts of those cars going electric on this channel already, but we haven't really touched other types of electric transport. So today, let's dive into e-bikes. Stay tuned in for the details. My name is Martyn Lee, and if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do so and hit the bell icon so you never miss a show. Leave us a comment below as well, and we'd like to know if you want more content like e-bikes, scooters, and micro-mobility. We'd love to hear from you. So what is an e-bike? Well, let's go back to basics for a moment. We all know what a bicycle is, but the moment you put an E before it, it can get a little confusing. I'm not surprised because although the first e-bikes were made nearly 100 years ago, only in the last few years people really started to become aware of them. So you could say that an e-bike is just a bicycle with an integrated motor, but then that does break down into two classifications. There's pedelec and there's throttle. So what do we mean by that? Well, first of all, pedelec is when the motor only assists when you're pedaling. When you turn the pedals to cycle, the motor kicks in, and that helps you along with added power. So you effectively control the power with your feet. The harder you press, the more the motor kicks in. Some others have a throttle that you press, and the motor will just whiz you along whether you're pedaling or not. But it's worth noting, in many countries and jurisdictions, throttle bikes are not actually classified as bicycles and might not even be allowed on the roads or the pavement, so before you run out to buy one, do check your local laws. So let's leave it there for a moment and look at other aspects. Well, are e-bikes popular? Yes, they are, and getting a whole lot more popular really quickly. Transport and mobility has changed a lot because of the events over the last couple of years, and e-bikes were the answer for a lot of people. Researchers at NPD Group showed that sales in the US grew by 145% from 2019 into 2020. The EU Mobility Atlas claims that 17% of all bike sales in the EU are now e-bikes. And these figures are only going to grow. But that's enough of the data for now. Let's get on with the more exciting stuff. How fast does an e-bike go? Well, typically, these types of bikes can travel up to 25 to 32 kilometers an hour, 16 to 20 miles an hour. Of course, many exceptions in there. Some people are even adapting their own bikes to go much, much faster. Typically, pedelecs will not offer more than 250 watts of continuous power and stop assisting when you get to a speed around 25 kilometers an hour. Although in places like Germany or the US, you can get a subcategory of pedelecs. It's called an S-pedelec. That allows up to 750 watts of power and 28 miles of speed. Well, that's all well and good, Martyn, you might say, but can I afford one? And this is where it gets a little bit sticky, because they're not cheap. But then again, it depends on where you're from, what type of bike you want, and how you want to go about getting the e-bike. It's also relative to what form of transport you're replacing. As in, it's much cheaper than a car. In the US, a new e-bike will typically cost around $1,500 to $2,000. Where I am, in the UK, easily spend £1,500 and get a really decent one. But the prices do go up substantially if you're buying performance e-bikes, or you are looking to shift a lot of cargo with a cargo e-bike. Also in Europe, there are significant duties on many imported e-bikes to protect domestic production and manufacturers. But if you're on a budget and you're budget conscious, then you can definitely find much cheaper examples than the figures we've just spoken about. In the same way that you haven't got to buy a very expensive Mercedes to drive as your car. You could drive an MG5. But there's another way to get your hands on an e-bike, and you don't even have to buy a bike. That means retrofitting. You can retrofit your existing bike as an e-bike. It's an increasingly popular endeavor, and one best highlighted by all the fast food couriers that you might see flying around towns and cities. There are loads of companies out there that make these kits. The likes of Switch, with a Y, can post out your conversion kit for you. You assemble it yourself. It's really easy. It can be done at home with the help of basic tools. The Californian-based Bafang do some pretty nifty kits as well that'll go all the way up to 1,000 kilowatts of power. When we talk EVs and cars in particular, Oh, we love to talk about range, don't we? So, let's talk about range with e-bikes. How long is a piece of string, though? That answer is impossible to get to. It depends on so many things. The terrain, any elevation, how fast you want to go. But in general, let's be very general, for an entry-level e-bike, I'm going to draw a line and say something around 30 miles. But of course, if you're willing to spend more money, there's companies out there that will happily supply you with a very long-range e-bike. Take the Amsterdam-based QWIC Quick, for example. They have a few bikes in their range that'll take you upwards of 100 miles if you're riding in eco mode. Well, I mean, think about that for a second. That's farther than the original Renault Zoe or Nissan Leaf. Maybe we'll test one out on the channel here in the future. Let us know in the comments below if you'd like to see that. E-bikes look like a really nifty idea, but wouldn't it be great if you could put a big basket on the front or back and carry some stuff around, or maybe put a couple of seats up front to bring the kids to school? Well, don't worry, you're well covered there also. Now, although there are loads of uses for e-bikes out there, we're going to take a look at cargo bikes now. They can be a brilliant way to move people and goods cheaply and quickly around cities. Now, there's no narrow description of what a cargo bike is. They can take any form really, a long tail, a box bike, a pedicab, a trike, and so on. And each one of these has its own specialities. Different manufacturers will take different approaches to setting up a cargo bike. Things like weight ratings will be different for each one. Most manufacturers will allow you to spec your bike in a certain way. You can have rain covers, more batteries, more motors, and so on. Now, a cargo bike is a good bit more expensive than a regular bike, but then again, it's all relative. If you're replacing a second car in your family with an e-bike, well, $5,000 is not such a huge amount to spend over a period of years considering the savings you'll make in maintenance and fuel. So much to go through in the world of e-bikes, and this really does scratch the surface. A quick fire introduction, if you like. Did you enjoy it? And would you like to know more? What do you think about riding e-bikes in your personal situation? If you have an e-bike, let us know your experience and why you bought it and what it's like owning one. Let us know all of your comments down below. I can't wait to keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for watching today. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. It tells us to make more like it, and we'll see you on the next one.